Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to another episode of the Tradie Business School podcast, the only podcast you're ever going to need to grow and scale your trade-based business. We have another cracking episode today, and I am joined with some plumbing royalty, I've just found out. Please welcome to today's show, Marilyn Sheffield, who is the first female master plumber in South Australia. I hope I've got that right. And I believe it was the second female plumber in South Australia, you told me?
Yes, that's right.
Cool. Well, welcome to the show, Marilyn. I feel so privileged to be in your presence. One of the, and I know you laugh about it, but the ladies that have like forged their way and made their mark into trades-based industries, a good friend of mine is, one of the first female surveyors, and the stories that you ladies have are just phenomenal. The shit that you've had to put up with from us embedded misogynistic bastards out there, but the industry as a whole, the persona, those sorts of things. So thank you for being here. I'd love for you just to share a bit about yourself. Obviously, we're going to get into talking about Mates in Construction, which is the organisation you're now involved with. We'll get to that part of the story, but please give me a bit of a background on who you are. I've given the viewers and the listeners a little bit of an introduction, but I don't want to do you any disservice. So please. Share the jewels of wisdom.
No worries. Well, I'll take it right back to the start. I was born in Sagina, over on the West Coast.
Nice.
Grew up in the western suburbs of Adelaide, around the Woodville area, went to Woodville High School. Basically went right through to year 12 doing really cool subjects like math, English, physics, chemistry, and went, I don't want to study anymore. Spent probably half of the year in the student counsellor's office because that was the legal way to wag a lesson at the time.
Yeah.
And she said to me, you can't leave school without a plan because one, your mum's a teacher at the school and it's not a good look. So what do you like doing? So I said, I like being outside and I like water. And she jokingly said, go and be a plumber. So I went, okay. And off I went. And
wow.
Did a pre-trade training course at an RTO to make sure that I could do it, for one thing. From that, gained an apprenticeship. Did my apprenticeship. While I was doing my apprenticeship, decided that I actually did like study stuff. So I did all the study to become a master plumber during my apprenticeship. So the day that I stepped out of my apprenticeship, completing it, I was actually a qualified master plumber as well. So
wow.
Luckily enough, I met my husband at trade school as well. His favourite joke is that we met in the drain laying room. It was love at first lay. I'll just throw that out there because he thinks...
he will be very impressed when he sees this episode that you put that in.
So from there, we both worked for a while in plumbing companies and then decided to start our own business. So he's still up and running that business at this point in time.
Yeah.
And I did that work.
You had the common sense to get out, but we'll get to that.
Did all the weird and wonderful stuff, decided to have children while running the business. So heavily pregnant, climbing through manhole covers to go to, person access covers. We've got to be PC.
Yes.
And climbing through heavily pregnant to fix hot water services and stuff. And did that. Right. Loved it, did the job. But got to a point where I decided I'd had enough dealing with other people's shit, and what else can I do?
Yeah.
And then I saw an advertisement.
So was that like metaphorical and real, like dealing with other people? Like there's so many plumbing jokes. Like if like a whole dad joke, please forgive me.
Yeah. No, it was right, both versions right there. So then an advertisement came up to work for a group training organisation, which basically meant I became a mum to an extra 120 people.
Just what you needed.
Just what I needed when I had a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old. So let's just throw in males and females from the ages of 16 through to my oldest was 41. So
nice.
I did that, which I absolutely loved because it meant I got to boss lots of people around and look after them and make sure that we were building a good plumbing base, lots of good plumbers to become hopefully good master plumbers, not in competition with my husband, but to make sure our industry grew and it became the strong industry that it used to. So did that.
Very nice. I was just going to say, like, it was not enough. Like, this is what I love about women and women that become mothers in particular, right? They're like, I just had a couple of kids. We started our own business. We've had a couple of kids. How else can I complicate my life? I know. I'll add another 120 children to the mix. Yeah, perfect. Sorry, please continue.
So that's right. I'm pretty sure that's where my husband's mind went. Like, what are you doing? Like, but anyway, he was fully supportive. He thought it was a great idea because he was as passionate about the industry as what I was. So did that. And during that time, like, my comments to the apprentices were changed from being, can you wear your uniform? Can you get your timesheet in? Can you go to trade school? Can you please just turn up to work when you're meant to be there? To going, I'm sorry your girlfriend's left you, that your parents have kicked you out of the home, that you're having a really hard time of it and you can't get to work. What can I do for you to help you with your mental state so that we can get you back to work? And so that's where the Mates in Construction training came in. I actually did the 3 levels that Mates offer in the training. And I was using those skills all the time in that job. And unfortunately, the job did demand it sometimes that I use suicide intervention skills. And I was probably doing it twice a month, maybe once a month, on and off for a while. And the brain then went, well, I know I can fix the end, but I need to stop us getting here. I need to get in front of this. And that very day I saw an advertisement for a field officer at Mates in Construction. So I jumped at the opportunity to get a chance to get in front of all the mental health and suicide process so that I can actually get out there and impart skills into people looking out for themselves and their mates.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I want to just go back a little bit to I guess the natural evolution of your mindset. And I just want to point that out for our listeners, because I often find people stuck in that sort of mindset where they feel like all their employees are shit, right? And they're having those discussions with them like, can you just do the common sense stuff, the basics, get your timesheets in on time, show up on time, communicate with me, those sorts of things. And when you flip that like you did to a place, and I always say to people, seek first to understand before you're understood, right? So seek first to understand what's going on. And it's 180 degrees from probably how you and I were brought up in the construction space, where it was stiff upper lip, toughen up princess, all of those kind of quintessential trade comments, right?
Yeah.
The bag of cement, harden up. And it's now like rather than leave your shit at home, it's like, bring it to work. Let's sort it out. Because, and I think when I had Matt on last week, we talked about how your productivity increases or your team's productivity increases when you're taking care of them that way. So it's such a shift which you did quite organically, so I admire that.
Yeah, I must admit, I probably got a bit of help on that shift because, I came up through my apprenticeship, and I, being one of the very few females around on the site, it wasn't said a lot to me, but I certainly watched the male apprentices around me hearing things like, you need to toughen up, you need to take a cup of cement or a teaspoon of cement, and those sort of wording were directed at them, not so much me, because I think they were all worried about getting done for harassment in some form. So I didn't cop it, but then I didn't realize I'd taken that on myself until my 9-year-old was sitting there after I'd taken a phone call from an apprentice, and luckily she couldn't hear what the apprentice was saying, but I was saying stuff and I hung up, and she actually said, he just needs a cup of cement, doesn't he, Mum? And I'm like, wow, my 9-year-old sent something that I hated hearing. So clearly that's come out of my mouth.
Oh, wow.
And I went,
yeah, that's really important, right? Because we throw those comments around like all the time, and we think they're really insignificant and innocent, but to certain people at certain points in the time, they absorb that stuff and it becomes their their narrative, their dialogue, and how they go about life, and impacting a night. I mean, I'm sure your children are super tough now,
They are.
but however, they might lack a little bit of compassion for everybody else. You just imagine a 9-year-old standing over another 9-year-old and going, "You just need a cup of cement," my mum said.
You're right. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I raised you to be tough, but you're going to have soft edges as well. Come on.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the velvet sledgehammer.
So that swing, it did take a while to come through, but
Yeah,
that's probably, as mates in construction, that's probably one of our big things that we work on, is the fact that we know that the next generation behind us are more open to talking about their mental health than the ones of my generation. But we also want to make sure my generation are understanding that we need to give them the space to talk about it, and we need them to listen, because if we're listening to them, then that's going to sink into my generation about there is allowed to be compassion, there is allowed to be shown a little bit of don't know where to go, and it's not a bad thing. So
yeah. Do you find there's much tension, much resistance to this kind of, I'll call it a new way of looking at mental health? I feel like we're in like a really interesting transition period now. I mean, there's a lot of crazy transition stuff happening in the world. You corrected yourself on the term manhole earlier. So we're being very diplomatic in many areas. But the other thing is that, the whole initiation of tradies is like long dead now. You can't go and send people to the shop and get them to ask for a long weight or a left-handed screwdriver, all those really funny things we used to do to apprentices.
Yeah.
But how do you find that it's being adopted and picked up, like the change in mindset and those sorts of things?
I'll be completely blunt. I use the word fossil quite a lot, and our industry has the fossils where I don't think they will change.
Yeah.
They won't stand in the way of someone seeking help or talking, but they themselves still think it's, I've got to be tough, I've got to be brave. I can't let anyone else see that I'm cracking underneath the surface. But having said that, some guys have actually surprised me on site. We start off our training and you can hear the mumbling and the grumbling and the, why am I here? And then they'll, halfway through the training, they'll ask a really important question, or they'll actually answer a question we ask us, and you go, wow, I thought you'd shut off. And they're accepting it. And I think that we have our industry leaders and we have our sports icons and we have people that they look up to talking about the fact that it's not a sign of weakness if you speak, it's a sign of strength that you're willing to do this and willing to say to your mate as well, not just about themselves, but saying to their mate, you don't seem like yourself. What's happening there? Do you want to have a chat about it? And not that it's condoned, but let's go and have a drink and have a chat. Just step away. And
it doesn't have to be an alcoholic beverage.
No, well, we can have a coffee. We can have a kombucha if that's your type of thing. Oh, no, but let's just step away for a moment and sit down and talk. Is probably the best way that the message is getting out there. That it's not about fixing their problems. You're not going to be their psychologist. You're not going to be the help there. You're just starting the process with them.
Yeah. And I think that's really important to remember, is that you don't have to be the complete problem solver. There is systems and processes and organizations like Mates out there that are highly trained now. And I think that that's important. That was one thing I highlighted with the chat with Matt, was that there is training there to kind of upskill people.
Yeah.
And I'm happy for us to talk about the three levels. So it was general awareness, connect, and what was the third one? Sorry?
Assist. So assist stands for applied intervention skills training. So that's our top level, and that's not for everyone. Not everyone wants to be that, but the people that do that training come out of it and feel so willing and keen to use those skills. It's never has anyone come out of that training and gone, well, that was a waste of 2 days.
Yeah.
I might as well been at work. They've all come out and gone, I can't believe how easy it is to help somebody. I thought that it would be traumatic. I thought that it would be, I wouldn't know what to say or where to go. And out of the 2 days, that's what they learn, and they are able to keep an eye out on their mates. And luckily, we don't get a lot of people ring back and say they've had to use those intervention skills, but they do ring and say, hey, I did pick up stuff with my mate. We had a chat, and now he's going to go and seek some counselling.
That's so amazing. We talked offline a little bit, and I really want to sort of leverage your experience, and I guess like so many different areas. Like you come through an apprenticeship, you became a master plumber, you're a lady in a male dominated industry, your husband's a tradie, you started a bit like you. I couldn't have picked a better guest, to be honest, to really talk to all the people that listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
Now being in this supporting role in and around mental health and obviously suicide prevention, but also still being at the coalface, seeing what your husband goes through on a daily basis, those sorts of things. I'd love for you to share, I guess, some of your experiences in and around the interventions, I guess, that you've had, the impacts of suicide on families, because there's going to be people in both camps here. We have the quintessential wife or partner that plays that sort of admin girl role. We have lady tradies, which is amazing, that listen. But we also have those somewhat fossilized men in the group, that in the audience, that they've been battling for days, weeks, months, years, and not doing anything. And what I really want to do is get into their minds about the impacts that them not addressing this problem and the weight and the burden that they carry. I always say heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? Like it's quite a physical representation. A crown is made of heavy metals and precious stones. They're quite heavy, but metaphorically speaking, it's the burden of responsibility that sits on our head or on our shoulders. And when we don't take that off and rest and recover and look after ourselves, the impact is far reaching. So there's no one better to talk to about, like, what sort of impacts have you seen on, I guess, the individuals themselves, but, the family and the extended communities of these people.
Yeah, it's one of those funny things. We quite often, when I was in the role looking after apprentices, they're like, I can't wait to start my own business. And I would actually say to them, do you enjoy taking paid holidays? Do you enjoy being able to do what you want when you want, not have to deal with phone calls? And they'd just look at you and go, and I said, and how are you on paperwork? Do you actually like filling out paperwork? Because you can't do a timesheet. How are you going to do an invoice? Yeah. And they'll look at me and I'm like, I'm not trying to put you off, but you need to understand, as a small business and a partnership or as a sole trader, however it's set up, you're responsible for doing the work. You're responsible for creating the invoice. Now, whether it's you physically doing it or the partner doing it, someone's got to do the paperwork side, and then someone's got to chase the money. So, and then you've got to have a life. So if you're running a small business and you've got kids and both of you are in the business, there never seems to be a time where it's not about the business. And that's the big pitfall, I think, is that people don't take that step back and go, hey, we need to have time for us. And quite often, if it is a male-female partnership doing it, and the children, the female's looking after the kids as well as trying to do whatever part of the business they're in, whether they're the tradie part, whether they're the invoicing part. Everyone's got this huge amount of time that they're trying to juggle into our little 24 hours. And some days it's 23 hours is on the business and 1 hour of sleep, which is your only downtime. And it builds up and it keeps building until something cracks. And across all of our industry, our big triggers are relationship breakdowns, finances. These are big things that impact. And when you're in the business and that's your sole income is for both people, it becomes all consuming, and you need a break from it. You need to set aside, let's go and have a coffee and feed up and build sandcastles or whatever to get away from that, because you just don't have a break. And it's really important to me in that. Some couples hit the jackpot and they are able to balance it. But the more I speak to small business people, it is continually is the business, you're never stepping away. Mobile phones are a great invention, and it made our business much better on the communication. But it also means that at 10 o'clock at night on a Sunday night, someone sends a message, what time are you turning up tomorrow? And they think that's okay. They send you that message.
Yeah. And I think that the thing is, like, I always talk to people about controlling, and you probably do this with a lot of people when they're in that mental health space, being able to control what's in your control, right? And I think when you become a business owner, and this is why we do what we do, right? Because there's not an apprenticeship. Like, I often refer to what I teach people as the CEO apprenticeship, because we talk about very simple things like creating boundaries around your mobile phone and making sure that you've got things in place so you can take those downtime. Because you're right, we're far too accessible these days compared to how we used to be when you used to have to go to a landline. Like, you'd leave the office, the landline office number stayed in the office, right? But we don't do that. So there's some simple things that we need to build in there. But I mean, I'm assuming you've seen everything from obviously the final moment, as far as people that take their own life through to relationships breaking down, businesses burning down, all of those sorts of things. Is there anything that I've missed there that, and I guess the greater impact of all those things happen? What are you sort of seeing in your over a decade of experience now?
Yeah, it is. It's always a lot of things. It's never, when we're talking about suicide, it's never one thing. It's always a whole lot of things stacked on top of each other that get someone to that point. And I'm pleased to say, I know that Mates in Construction is making an impact across all our levels of our construction, whether it's the big construction to residential, your maintenance guys, that they're reaching out for very different reasons now on our helpline. They know that there's going to be someone that listens to them. So it's really hard to pinpoint just one thing that does do it. As I said, relationship breakdowns is a big one. And that's not just in a partnership, however that partnership looks. It's losing their mates for whatever reason. So maybe they've pulled out of the footy club, they're not playing footy anymore, and all of a sudden that community is not there for them because we're not going well. And they sort of mourn losing those mates that they've got there. And the same with, it could be a lifelong friend. They have a falling out and they stop talking to someone they've known since high school. And all of a sudden, because the person that they had as a friend had no idea the pressure they were in their business, they just stopped talking because the phone call, can you come out? We're going out to a restaurant. No, I can't. I've got to go and do a job, or I have to get this invoiced in. I've got to get this tender done. If I don't, the tender cuts off at midnight tonight. If I don't do it, I'm not going to win that tender, and then I'm not going to have work for the next month type thing. So I've had that in phone calls where like people just don't understand the pressure I'm under to keep the door open. And obviously in this economic climate, things are getting tighter and tighter. People are trying to fix stuff for themselves and make a mess of it, but then the tradesman comes in and says, well, I've got to do this. Oh, but I can't afford that. I can't fix your problem if you don't do it. And there's a whole lot of things that are jumbling around.
Yeah, it's really interesting sort of where you took that, because like talking to somebody from Mates in Construction in and around suicide prevention, mental health, like it felt really sort of big, high level sort of stuff, but you brought that down so nicely to some simple things that really impact people, and they're also really, I guess they're really early symptoms too of when people are starting to suffer or struggle with the pressures of life and particularly business, obviously, is they do things like stop playing footy because they don't have time and they lose that support network. And it's, thinking of my own journey, the amount of stuff that I used to do before I started my business, and that'll gradually dwindled away, but they were my outlets, right? They were the things that kept the pressure cooker down. You know, when you think of I always think of mental health a little bit like a pot of boiling potatoes.
Yeah.
You know, when it boils over, you've got to go and pull the lid off and let the steam go and simmer down. Whereas when you get into your own business and those sorts of things, and it does, you're right, it doesn't matter what role you play, whether it's sort of the lead role as the tradesperson or, you know, a supporting role as admin and that sort of thing, they've all got their own pressures, you know, they create their own stresses. And I remember a coach of mine saying to me, her specialty was in and around burnout, you know, which often leads to depression and mental health stuff. You know, burnout is the product of ongoing, sustained periods of emotional stress.
Yeah.
You know, and this is the thing. Like you've got to be crazy to get into business. Like, you know, it takes a special kind of person, I believe. Look, we're running out of time well fast. I told you I wouldn't keep you for too long, but it's been such a pleasure having you. I'd love to know, like, what can people do if they want to get some training, if they want to upskill themselves, if they want to be able to, if they need support themselves, like what can Mates in Construction do in yourself?
Yeah. So as you already mentioned, we've got the 3 levels of training. So as anyone in the construction industry can access the training, like if it's someone just working for someone else, they can suggest to their boss or their supervisor, how about we get Mates in and come and do the general awareness training?
Yep.
And from there, they can volunteer to do the connector or the assist. Or if they're keen just to do it for themselves, they can actually jump in at the assist level and come along to one of our 2-day sessions. There is a cost, obviously, but I'm not going to talk money here and now. But our website is there with all the informations on that one. And the thing to remember is we talk about Mates in Construction, and Mates still has that connotation around the male men.
Yes.
But our training is for everybody, and our support and services is for anyone. So when we go to companies, we say to them, you know, you can bring everyone in from the apprentice to the CEO. So it's not just the guys on the tools, it's everyone in admin, it's the ladies, tradies, it's partners, and our help and support line supports the immediate family as well. So we have had people ring in and go, look, my husband is under so much pressure working, and I know that he's struggling, but I'm also struggling with it as well because I'm trying to support him, and it's starting to affect their mental health. So they are able to access the same services, even though they're not the person on tools. We do support immediate family as well. So
I love
many varied reasons.
Yeah, I love that, and I think that sums up, you know, really where I wanted to get to with you today is just that it's not just about the individual. There's and the beautiful thing I love about what Mates do is they do support the partners and the greater community in and around that person who may be completely oblivious that they're struggling and their behaviours are impacting others around. So, Marilyn, thank you so much for your time today. Ladies and gentlemen that are listening or watching, you can check out Mates in Construction at www.mates.org.au, and their hotline is 1300 642 111. It's all private, confidential, I believe. Marilyn, correct me if I'm wrong. It's not just for tradies. It's for anybody in and around the construction space that needs support. So, Marilyn, it's been an absolute pleasure having you. I'm sure I will get you back on for another episode where we can talk more about trades and plumbing. Now that I know just how much of an amazing superstar, I also want to just honor you as being one of the lady leaders in the industry. It's you ladies that have pioneered that and carved the way for the ladies of the future are just amazing, and I'm in awe of what you do and the support that you provide. So from my heart to yours, thank you very much. It's been amazing having you. And for everybody listening, if you do need help, please reach out to the website and that number that I just said, 1300 642 111, or, you know, drop a comment below, DM me. I'm more than happy to offer some time, no charge as well. And send me an email at hello@tradiebusinessschool.com. But for now, that's all. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, Ben.